Da 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 da. Putting the pistol in my pants. Da 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 da.
Recording an episode.
Da 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 da.
Back to media morsels.
Da 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 da.
That was the worst thing I've ever heard.
Sucks.
Welcome to Media Morsels, the podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica. Wasn't I a character enthusiast and aesthetic connoisseur?
Are you telling me that you forgot your time?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be my inaugural editing trip, and let me tell you.
It's gonna be a doozy.
It's been a doozy of a day, officer. We're a little rusty.
Yeah, it's been a while,
We've
but
been on hiatus since May.
yeah, a lot of things have happened, and we'll talk about that probably at some point. But first, let me try to get through this introduction. Welcome to Media Morsels, the podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica, character enthusiast and aesthetic connoisseur.
I'm Jamie, plot guy and the summarizer.
And I'm Mitchie, vibe checker and scene chewer.
I'm Cian, but my friends call me Chicky, and I still don't have a title, but I dub myself Chief Fidgeter.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Fidgeter, yeah.
I mean, we got all the fidget toys out.
We got most of them, yeah.
Not all.
Not all of them. We have the ones that are quiet.
Yes.
But we will, someday, soon, you will be dubbed something, and you may not get to choose what it is.
That's true.
So, this week, it is December, so we're trying to get into the Christmas spirit. And for a lot of people, one of their go-to Christmas movies is the action movie Die Hard, which I, controversial opinion, have never believed that a good Christmas movie made. It's a great movie. It's just it's an action movie that happens to take place during Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie. That is my feeling.
A poll on our Instagram page for you to decide.
That's just that's setting me up to lose. I already know I'm gonna lose, but I'm just saying how I feel. But if Die Hard counts as a Christmas movie, so does the movie that we watched this week, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
1996 or 5 years BS.
Before Shrek, starring the incomparable Geena Davis as our action heroine.
Who we left off with in Earth Girls Are Easy in the last episode.
We have more Geena Davis because we love Geena Davis in this household. There's at least one more movie that has Geena Davis in it that we will be watching at some point.
And co-starring Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
The badass motherfucker himself.
Yes. And it is a wild ride, basically from start to finish. And also, as an adult, one of my more favorite movies. I do enjoy it a lot. And yes, if Die Hard counts, so should The Long Kiss Goodnight. And that is our Die Hard in this household, if we must have an action Christmas movie.
What about Gremlins?
Gremlins is pretty good.
Anyway, let's move on to the appetizer round.
So, the appetizer round is where we discuss what our first exposure to this movie was.
As well as a spoiler-free summary of the plot and any content warnings that we feel might be appropriate.
Yeah. Often the content warning is literally content warning, this was made in the 1980s, product of its time, unfortunately. But today, before we have the summarize...
First tastes.
The first morsel of this media. Well, for me, this is definitely, once again, one of those movies, one of those weird-ass movies that I just basically grew up with. And
Because you and your family dropped out of a parallel universe where there was Gender Flipped Die Hard and all these other movies.
yeah, honestly, I did not see Die Hard until I was, I think, in my mid-20s.
Let that one sink in, folks.
Yeah, but I did see The Long Kiss Goodnight when I was, 8 or 10 or something, when my parents finally let me be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, let me tell you, listener, I don't necessarily think that this is a child-friendly movie.
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
But at the same time, it's, again, one of those movies that a lot of the stuff is just going to go right over a kid's head. Even if you are, literally hearing the word fuck or whatever, or seeing a gal kiss up on Samuel L. Jackson, it's not connecting. At least it didn't for me. I was just huh? In one ear and out the other. I was just wow, this is a really weird, really fun action movie, and also Geena Davis.
An early awakening moment.
Yeah, and okay, so again, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm wild for a person of any gender who has short, bleached hair.
And eyeliner.
Eyeliner, ideally.
And gray morals.
And gray morals.
Which there's a surprising number of characters that fit that bill.
Yes.
Clearly you're not the only person who feels
Yeah, I'm clearly not the only person. But Geena Davis in this movie as Charlie Baltimore. Spike in Buffy. There's a few others.
Does Todoroki count?
Yeah, I do like Todoroki.
Draco Malfoy.
He
Well-
crosses the line. And
Yeah, he crosses.
Gray.
He's kind of sniveling. I don't like a little sniveler. Okay,
He doesn't like no bitch ass.
I don't like little bitches.
I'll
You
take that
have
as a compliment.
You have to be a badass to be on this list, and
Ooh.
Draco Malfoy is not. Now, there's lots of Draco Malfoy fanfic out there that do make him into a also, along with having gray morals, you pretty much have to have a redemption arc. Draco doesn't really
And good
get that.
cheekbones.
Yeah, you have to have good cheekbones. You have to be able to fucking kick ass. I don't know. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that the Charlie Baltimore character, because I didn't see Buffy the Vampire Slayer until literally
5 years ago, maybe?
yeah, 5 to 7. So, I don't know, Charlie Baltimore might have been the foundational white hair and trauma.
Of course you have
babe.
white hair.
Little baby me was wow.
Mm.
The only thing I took away was she's a badass bitch with guns.
That's
And-
also the only thing I took away. That's the only thing I could remember about this movie.
Yeah, when do you think you saw it? What
I had to
age?
have been around the same age, because I would have been 4 when it came out.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so would me too, so.
So, I think when I was finally allowed to be in the... Or I don't even know if I was really allowed in the room. All I could remember was that there was Geena Davis, and she was blonde, and there were guns.
That's all you need to know, really. I feel
I mean,
in a
you
way, you
summarized
could
the
just
movie, yeah.
walk away with that.
Still your job, Gina.
Oh, yeah.
My only experience was literally, I want to say last year, because you guys were this is a cute Christmas movie in our household, and I'm just okay.
I don't know that we use the word cute.
We did not use the word cute.
We were this is a Christmas movie in our household, though. Yes, we did.
Once again, this movie is Jess's fault in my life, but I've come to dearly love it, and we will go into gratuitous detail about why.
Dearly.
Oh god. Yeah, we'll get to that too.
Well, I mean, summarizer.
Yeah.
Do you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for
The summarizing.
Okay, in fair Verona, where we set our scene. I actually don't know the name of the small Massachusetts town that Geena Davis lives in, but she is a school teacher and has the perfect little idyllic life, and the opening credits, after very ominous Christmas montage happens, address Geena Davis's character having amnesia, but having lived the perfect tradcore wife life for about 8 years. She's got a darling little girl. She's an elementary school teacher. Got a ride-or-die husband. We'll get more into that later. But then a car accident reawakens her memories of her past life.
You
And
could even say she's like a sleeper agent being
yeah.
activated.
Yes. And let's just say that past life does not match up to her current identity. And the rest of the movie is trying to sort that out with guns.
Yeah!
lots of guns.
So many guns. Some bombs, knives, eyeliner.
Yeah. All
Only
kinds of
4
stuff.
inches? You'll feel it.
And lots of one-liners. Oh my god.
Oh my god, so many one-liners.
As a 80s/90s action movie, the one-liners are rich in this film.
A rich vein.
Brief note on content warnings. Violence. So much violence. Violence. And attempted sexual assault. I think that might be...
I mean, child endangerment, but
Yeah,
it's an action
but it's
movie.
all very unrealistic.
Yeah.
And also the terrible thing that 90s typically does with, like, terrorism and that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yes. That one's a little harder to define and definitely spoilerific.
Yeah.
Yes. And now we transition into the main course. In Fair Verona, where we set our scene.
Well, let's go ahead and re-explain the main course, because the listeners may have also taken a 6-month hiatus from this.
Yeah, so in the main course, we have a spoiler full of spoilers, summary of the media that we just consumed.
And our various thoughts pertaining thereto.
Yeah, and sort of our conversation as we're going along there. You know, if you want to watch this movie before we discuss it, go ahead and pause. We'll be here when you get back. We'll wait for you. We'll save you a seat at the table.
It is available on streaming. We rented it on Amazon,
Yeah.
I'd say.
I don't think it's available anywhere for free right now on streaming. You can rent it on Amazon Prime, at least. But there's a couple other places too. I think like Vudu and stuff like that. So if you want to go and watch that before we continue, go ahead and do that. And if you just kind of are like me, where you sometimes kind of want to know the
What you're
general
getting
cadence
into.
of the, like, just sort of like the synopsis or even, you know, super spoilers about a film before you see it, then stick on with us. We are getting into that right now.
Yes.
The movie opens up with this really interesting kind of negative effect where there's, I guess, FBI notes.
Well,
kinda
it's her,
calling-
she's writing her name in cursive over and over, but it, like,
Yeah.
switches between Samantha Kane and Charlene Elizabeth Baltimore.
Yeah, and so that's her two names going through and, like, doing overlays on top of, like, Christmas presents and FBI reports and just a whole bunch of just fun little memorabilia here and there. And it's actually fairly well done according to the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely, like, sets the mood. Oh, here's all these cozy Christmas things. Ominous music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then hard cut to really cute Christmas parade.
Yeah, we open with the Christmas parade, and
Sexual harassment.
well, yeah, you know, it's Samantha Kane, little elementary school teacher, Geena Davis. Samantha Kane is playing Mrs. Claus in the Christmas parade that year in her tiny little
New England
town. Of course, there's a bunch of young teenagers or young adults
The
who are
shithead
like,
squad.
woo! And she's, you know, throwing candy at them, like, whatever. There's TV crews who are televising this, and, you know, at the end of that, she and her husband walk home to their really awesome house for being two teachers, because I think he's like high school teacher and she's like an elementary school teacher, and I'm like, you can tell this is the 90s because they have like a nice house.
What's even his name?
I don't remember. It's not that important. But they can afford a 2,000 square foot, fully furnished home.
Really
in New
cute and cozy New England home.
On 2 teacher salaries.
Yeah.
So
And
you can tell it's the mid-90s.
yeah. Samantha has a daughter. Samantha explains, as, you know, all this is happening, that she is only 8 years old because she can only really remember 8 years back when she woke up on a beach or something. She had no memory. She was pregnant with her daughter at the time and
Doesn't know who the father is.
yeah, doesn't know who the father is, but she creates a life for herself. She settles down in this New England town, finds herself a really sweet hubby. They have, yeah, this pretty much perfect little working class life. Her daughter has, like, this awesome treehouse, by the way. Like,
Yeah, it's
her
great.
daughter, Caitlin.
Has like a little trap door and everything.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And this works us up to like, probably one of my favorite film transitions, because the narrative is Geena Davis going through her internal monologue, describing how first she went through the expensive detectives to try to figure out what her past life was, and now she's worked her way down to the cheap ones, and honestly, she's at a point where she almost doesn't care about what her past life was anymore. and then immediately cut to the cheapest detective she's gotten to date.
And it's Samuel L. Jackson.
So Samuel L. Jackson was already firmly established as Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson action movie badass. And this movie starts with him as morally ambiguous, private eye, gritty, all that. And then for the rest of the movie, he just gets his ass handed to him constantly. So that Geena Davis gets to look good.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very purposeful casting choice.
Yeah, he gets damseled a lot, and that was a very clever casting choice.
It's like the Worf effect. You set up the biggest badass in the room, and then to establish the biggest threat, you have to beat up that badass.
Yeah.
And that's what this entire movie does to poor Samuel L. Jackson, but he seems to be having a great time.
I think he had a good time. Yeah.
Fun fact, his name is also Mitch. Mitch the Private Dick.
Yeah, it becomes very clear very quick that these guys are like private eyes, but they're he and his associate, they're like barely above crooks themselves.
Well, no, they are crooks because we meet them.
Oh yeah,
they're doing a fake prostitution bust.
Yeah, and they're extorting a guy
that they're trying to pass off as police detectives.
Yeah, and they're extorting him for money. They are just really, really scuzzy. But they do manage to get a hit on Samantha Cain's case and pursue that. Right around this time, we kind of cut back and we're at this Christmas party that Samantha Cain is having at her house. It's really fun and really cute, and I was like, damn, I wish I could go to a Christmas party like this. This seems like a lot of fun.
There was a really good toast during that.
It was a really funny toast.
May the worst of your past be the best of your future.
Which is thematic.
I was thinking of the one where he's like, I am happy to announce that I don't smoke, drink, or swear.
Shit, I do drink and smoke.
This whole thing is really good at bringing things full circle, essentially. Like the movie is, it's like a fun sort of like action romp, but it is good at bringing it full circle, bringing it around town.
We'll get to the Hamometer at the end, as is tradition. This movie is fucking bonkers, but it is surprisingly deft at setting up and paying off narrative beats, and I'll give all credit for that.
A lot of 80s and 90s movies are very, very good at that. Yes. And I don't know, somehow I think we kind of
straight away.
Yeah. So at the end of the party, though, Samantha is having to drive this old guy home. He's super drunk. He's also super kind of like pervy or whatever. Yeah. And he starts being like, I'm not drunk, waving his hands around in front of her as she's driving and kind of tries to like cop a feel. She gets distracted, obviously, by that because she's like, hey, stop that. And then they look ahead and there's a deer and it hits their car and breaks their windshield and they go out of control and it's an icy road and they hit a tree and she flies out of the windshield into a snowbank.
So what we learned today, kids, is don't grab a lady's tit without permission. You wind up getting a deer's hoof through your eye socket.
Yeah.
Also, he's never mentioned again.
Yeah.
No.
Nobody cares that he's dead. I was thinking about that during the movie. He dies in a horrible flaming car accident, and then that's the last we ever hear about that character.
I think it's just that everybody is so traumatized after that.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny that
or maybe they all knew. Maybe they all knew that he was like a pervy old man. They were like, whatever, I guess it was his time.
But they drop that completely.
So during this wreck, Sam gets yeeted through the windshield.
Yes, she gets yeeted through the windshield, and when she wakes up, she's starting. There's definitely some like weirdness. She's hit her head, obviously, because she's got blood all over her face. But she wanders over to the deer that is injured and dying, but it's not yet dead on the snowbank near her. She surprises everybody by mercy killing it, but by like grabbing its antlers and breaking its neck.
Doing a mercy kill in the most brutal fashion possible.
Well, efficient. It was efficient.
Yeah.
It wasn't brutal, but it was also like, oh shit.
If you're coming into this movie fresh, it comes so hard and so fast.
Well,
it just sideswipes you out of nowhere.
We were talking about how if you didn't see a poster of this movie, and if you didn't know better, you'd be like, oh, The Long Kiss Goodnight. That sounds like a great
Christmas rom-com.
Like a Christmas rom-com, or maybe a romantic drama or something like that. No, baby.
No.
That's not what we have here.
Mom breaking deer necks.
Yes.
And that's just the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. It's honestly very not romantic.
Yeah. Romance takes a distant backseat.
Yeah.
It's like the D plot.
Yeah, she's in the hospital, and as she's in the hospital, she starts having these weird dreams of talking to herself in a mirror, only her reflection is like, I'm Charlie, I smoke cigarettes, and you're gonna love me because I'm coming back.
Inside of you are two Geena Davises.
Honestly?
Honestly, though.
Living the dream.
Yeah. Right around this time, we also cut to a prison.
And we have zero context for this.
In this prison, first we see the Christmas parade being played on this TV. There's like one inmate, just one, sitting in this TV room watching this TV. And he sees Mrs. Claus, which is Samantha Cain, and he goes fucking ballistic.
No way! No fucking way!
Yeah, trying to break the TV and shit like that, which is why it's in a cage. Because I guess that's happened before. Anyway, so, wow, what was that about? I guess that'll come back, which it does.
Oh boy.
Pretty damn quickly.
There's a cut to Mitch interacting with his kid.
Yeah. So Mitch has a ex-wife and kid, and he's sitting on the porch playing with this toy that he got his son with his son. And they're sort of laughing and all that stuff, and it's clear that his ex-wife is like, I wish you would drop dead. But she's very keen to kind of have them wrap that up so she can get her son back inside. Because, Mitch is just not a very great role model, because it's heavily implied that he has stolen things to give to his son before. And you can also tell that his son at this point is like, he loves his dad, but he's probably a little less than impressed with his dad. He definitely doesn't really want to go down that road. But Mitch also very clearly loves his child and is disappointed by the interaction, but it's not like he blames his kid, or honestly, it doesn't even seem like he blames his ex-wife. He's just kind of like,
this sucks.
Yeah, this sucks. But he learns that they got a better hit on Samantha Cain's stuff. They managed to track down
the last place that she rented prior to reporting amnesia.
From the assistant Trish, referred to as a purebred dick hound.
Yep.
But
I think
purebred dick hound is also the best of every detective that Sam's ever hired.
Yeah.
Put that on my gravestone.
I mean, we need Media Morsels t-shirts.
Purebred dick hound.
Purebred dick hound, is that going to go on the list?
Well, I was also going to say, one of the maybe content warnings that we should also include is just misogyny, casual misogyny. And you could say that that's just kind of how this genre works, this sort of hard-boiled action, whatever. But it is annoying, the misogyny. The casual misogyny. It kind of quits from characters that you're supposed to relate to anyway, about a third of the way through. Because Mitch is a big offender of that. But he quits that towards the end of the movie. But that is something that is annoying. They managed to find where Samantha lived last. They tracked down the old lady that Samantha Cain used to live with, and she has a bunch of Samantha Cain's personal effects that have just been left over.
All notably in a single piece of hand-carried luggage.
Yeah, it's all in this luggage. Mitch is on the way to deliver that to Samantha when, back at Casa de Cain, we have a scene where Samantha is helping cook in the kitchen because her husband cooks.
And
what a hottie.
It's clear that he does most of the cooking because she is abysmally bad at chopping vegetables.
Yeah, it's taking her forever, which, girl, I get that.
As a programming note, significant looks were exchanged between the girls and boys at the table because the boys are the ones that do the chopping.
Yep. But suddenly, Samantha starts chopping like a fucking pro, and it's she just sort of starts subconsciously doing it, and then she's, oh my god, what's going on? So they're like,
give me stuff, give me vegetables,
there's this
give me peppers, give me...
this super fun scene of them throwing different vegetables at her, and she's chopping them all up, and then, in the middle of all this, she starts balancing the knife on her fingertip, and then picks up a tomato, throws it, and then skewers it on the wall with the butcher knife. Instantly the mood shifts for her husband and her daughter, who are both kind of scared of that. And she's like, what? Chefs do that?
Yeah, this movie is queen of mood whiplash.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
And later that day, it seems, she is taking her daughter out ice skating, and she's teaching her daughter how to skate. Her daughter is kind of freaked out about it. She doesn't feel ready to skate on her own. And her mom is trying to be patient with her, but at a certain point, her expression completely changes. And she's like, stop being a baby.
Life is pain.
Life is pain. She pushes her kid out too early, and Caitlin isn't ready for it yet, so she skates a little ways, and then she falls down. There's this sharp crack, and she's like, I can't get up, my arm hurts, and her mom is just like, life is pain, get used to it, and you will learn how to ice skate, princess. Actually, like, it really is chilling, the transition from being this very warm, loving mother to this really intense, really blank-faced...
Well, and credit to Geena Davis, because she sells both of these performances completely. You believe her as the happy-go-lucky, plucky elementary school teacher. And you also equally believe her as the internationally renowned super assassin.
Yeah. Later, it turns out that her daughter had broken her wrist. Samantha feels really terrible about that.
And she doesn't even remember saying these things to her kid.
Yeah, she doesn't remember that. And it's obviously very deeply troubling to her. As she's kind of scooping herself back together and drying her eyes, she hears a bunch of carolers. Oh, there was a scene before this where we cut to this empty warehouse where this guy is torturing this other guy.
Oh yeah, the establishing shot of the villain whose name is Timothy?
Yeah.
Which is the least threatening villain name. Timothy?
My name is...
Oh, little
Tim?
Timmy got picked last for dodgeball, so he became a
psychopath.
So he
Yeah.
became a serial killer.
See, I'm just thinking Wizard Tim from...
My name is... Okay, this is a tangent, but I own that as the editor of this episode. So the funny thing about that is, originally his name was supposed to be something long and hard to pronounce as a parody of fantasy book names, but in that moment, he could not remember what it was supposed to be. So that long pause was him forgetting his line and ad-libbing Tim.
Good. Great.
And they just committed to it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
But he's torturing this guy, and he's asking him if he knows anything about Project Honeymoon. So that's like the first time we hear something about the larger plot. When he gets a call, whoever the caller is basically like, yeah, so remember your old buddy who was doing time up in prison? He's like, well, yeah, what of him? The guy's like, well, apparently he saw something that kind of made him go ballistic on the television, and later, before he broke out of jail... So we know he's broken out of jail now. At some point or another, he had admitted that he had seen Charlie Baltimore alive, and she was on television.
And she was supposed to be dead. And you were supposed to be the one who killed her.
Yeah, they were like, and Daedalus probably won't be happy about that. So that's the other thing that we learn. Daedalus, blah, 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 whatever.
Villain names.
Timothy and Daedalus.
Timothy and Daedalus.
Dickolas.
That joke had some poor execution.
Although it's... Okay, this is skipping around a little bit, but what else do we do on this program? It's really funny to me that they set up Daedalus as this big scary guy, and he has like a moment of getting to be big and scary, but he like dies within 10 minutes of being introduced.
Yeah.
Like when you actually meet him. And that's just really funny to me. And then it's little Timmy who's the big villain.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take
Well,
a moment
and
to
Timothy's
appreciate
whole thing, too, is I can tell when people lie.
Oh, yeah.
That's his whole
That's like
shtick.
his whole, thing. So anyway, so he's like, oh, fuck, and kills that guy just because he can, the guy who he's torturing, and then he storms out. Well, Samantha's daughter has broken her wrist. She's feeling really bad about it. It's evening time. These carolers are out someplace where I guess there's actually people who carol door to door.
I mean, it was the mid-90s in New England.
She opens the door, and it turns out that the guy from prison has them all at gunpoint, and he storms into the house, and he attacks her, and this is where, like, the action begins.
It gets really ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, like, action movie physics are in full effect. Do not expect this to make...
Well, to the point of, like,
real
Looney
sense.
Tunes physics.
Yeah, kind of Looney Tunes-y.
I mean, the fridge
at
is
times.
bulletproof.
Uh-huh. Bulletproof fridge.
She, like, tosses her...
But let's not skip around here, because the sequence of events is important.
Yep.
Her husband attempts to rescue her, and immediately there's a cut to what is clearly a dummy getting thrown through the air, because her husband He's a very nice man. He's useless in combat. That is established immediately. He shows up in a neck brace later after this incident.
He tried.
The criminal who has broken into the house, for some reason, has incendiary rounds in his shotgun and blows a hole in the staircase landing 2 feet away from her daughter. Her daughter then gets yeeted through said hole.
No, like, not just gets. Sam runs up there and throws her daughter through the hole in the wall, which happens to be exactly level with the treehouse outside.
Yeet the child.
And yeets her to safety into the treehouse.
And then...
Convenient.
Extremely convenient treehouse.
Yeah, and then he storms up and he's beating the crap out of her, and they, throws her in the kitchen, and they're scrambling around. He tries to...
Bulletproof fridge.
Yeah, he tries to shoot her. She opens the fridge and it blocks, like, the shot.
But she's holding her own,
Yes.
which we're supposed to be sort of surprised by.
I mean, she is kind of getting her ass kicked, though, but
not dying.
But she is not dying, yeah.
We know that fridges are actually nuke-proof. So...
Well, and...
We are not talking about the crystal skull.
I'm
We're not
getting in
doing
the
it.
I just did. Moving on.
The next time I hear a tornado siren, I'm
Get in the fridge. But she's, like, throwing things at him, which, is what you need to do to try to distract somebody who's trying to attack you or whatever. But he is about to get her, and that's when she notices this pie that she's made in, like, glass...
A Pyrex
pie tin. It's just been sitting there on the counter waiting for whatever, and she grabs it and smashes it as hard as she can into his face, which, stuns him, because it actually kind of fucking would. Some pies are really damn dense, and they're pretty heavy, and this is a Pyrex.
This is like a 2-pound Pyrex dish to the face. It's the pie to the face of death.
Yeah.
Lethal pie.
And so he's staggering around, and she hits him on the back of the head, and she's furious. God, I love her scary, furious face. I'm like, yes!
It's kind of hot.
Yeah. And she punches him in the back of the head, and then she reaches down, cracks his neck, and then she licks this, bloody, pie whipped cream.
At this point, her husband is back up and, stumbling around the house trying to find her.
Yeah, and he's seeing this happen.
Comes upon this scene of her snapping this man's neck and then licking the mix of whipped cream and blood off of her fingers.
And she looks up at him and she's like, chefs do that.
And then I came.
I mean, it's scary, but it is pretty hot. But then,
I just want to point out order real quick. We didn't really mention whenever Sam was hiding in the treehouse, because she was kind of
when she was having her trauma hide in the treehouse.
Yeah, she was having a trauma hide, and she was trying to kind of talk to her husband, saying, "Hey, I'm worried about everybody here because I don't remember saying anything to my child."
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, as somebody that has a little bit of memory problems, it's kind of scary whenever you forget things like that.
Yeah. Well, and especially since she now is beginning to get, I guess, an inkling that she might be violent.
Well, yeah.
She's really scared of that.
That's also the same moment where it's established, no, I'm not scared that you're going to hurt me. I'm scared that I'm going to hurt you.
Which is so hot.
Yeah.
I mean, not in reality, but fictionally, I'm like, oh, I love a character who's like, I'm not scared you'll hurt me, I'm scared I'll hurt you, I've got to have control.
Okay, so we've checked the box for bleach blonde character with trauma, superpowered evil side, amnesia, and split personality. So basically...
everything that I love.
There was no chance Jess was ever going to not like this movie.
Yeah. Again, I wonder if she wasn't the blueprint, though.
Probably.
Anyway, so she's got this scary look on her face where she's just like, yeah, chefs do that. I just murdered somebody. And then it kind of passes and she's like, oh shit, Caitlin. So they're running through the house to find her and she runs out the door. And at this point, the adrenaline's fading. So she's starting to stumble around because she did get hurt.
But the cops are here and so is Sam Jackson.
Well, I was about to say, he came up to her house because he was going to deliver all this stuff to her. And he runs up to her and he's like, your daughter's fine. She's in my car, because he caught the tail end of this and Caitlin ran to him. And then, right then, the cops pull up and they automatically assume that Samuel L. Jackson, Mitch, the black man,
the aggressor.
Yeah, is the aggressor, and Caitlin has to be like, no, it wasn't him.
Don't shoot.
Yeah.
Which, Lord, that has aged in some way.
Yeah.
Some indefinable.
Rather, it hasn't aged because it's still a problem.
Still relevant.
So yeah.
So
I too would run to Samuel L. Jackson if there were
Honestly,
if there were trouble.
In that moment, he looked like he knew what he was doing. The car's a safe place. Absolutely.
after this,
And he comes through for Caitlin several times.
he does. Well, because he loves kids.
Yeah.
It's clear that he really cares about children.
Okay, so I was actually thinking about this earlier, too. Sam Jackson's character is an excellent contrast to both Samantha Cain and Charlie Baltimore, but in opposite ways. He's the scuzzy underworld to Samantha Cain, but to Charlie Baltimore, he's the normal guy.
He's a family man.
Yeah.
Like, he is sort of like the 0.0, and then Samantha Cain goes from like plus 50 wholesomeness to minus 50 wholesomeness
Yeah.
as Charlie Baltimore. And I thought that was really interesting because he gets to be a foil to both of the personalities.
Well, and I
That's a
also,
good line.
Yeah.
I also like that he's a very, like, human person. Like, he
Yeah.
is very imperfect, and he can be kind of like a scuzzy, sort of petty criminal kind of guy.
But he has lots of surprisingly insightful moments.
Yeah, insightful moments, tender moments. He really says all this misogynistic shit, but he does really care about the people around him. He's just also willing to steal from them.
I mean, so it seems like he's established as really only swindling other assholes.
Yeah,
So that's pretty legit.
yeah,
He's Robin Hood.
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah. Later, what? Yeah.
Well, maybe
later,
a little less morally.
Later,
upright,
you
but-
find out that he's been to prison, and before he was in prison, he was a cop, but he was like a dirty cop.
Well, but dirty in like, I'm gonna steal some bonds that were in impound, not dirty as in I'm gonna like
Yeah, but
extort people.
yeah, well, police confiscating property and then him stealing it. So there's two levels of theft happening here.
Hey audience, if you want to get really angry, look up civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah. So anyway, we still like Mitch. I think he's a really interesting, cool character.
Thanks, guys.
And
I think he's just okay.
he's a really and also again, like, they don't shy away from showing the dynamics of the time, because guess what?
That hasn't really changed a whole lot.
Yeah. Anyway, finally, so Samantha, after having this horrible experience, is essentially like, I have to figure some shit out before I can come back to my family.
Detective Mitch has a lead. I'm going to go with him on a road trip.
Yeah, and while she's gone, she has this charm bracelet, because when she woke up on that beach 8 years ago, she had a charm bracelet with a key that had the numbers filed off, and she's since added charms to the charm bracelet, but she leaves it with her daughter to reassure her that she will be back, and she puts it around her daughter's teddy bear, Mr. Perkins.
And she also gives her some matches for a candle to light for her vigil.
Yeah, she's like, hey, hold a vigil for me and light a candle for me every night so that you can, like, guide me home to make her feel better. Somewhere around all of this, we start also getting, like, more information about what's going on here. Apparently, she was an agent that was part of something called Chapter.
She actually gets a little bit of the Jason Bourne treatment. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's like this, super high-level intelligence agency that has lost track of one of their assets. This was Bourne before Bourne.
Yeah.
Geena Davis was Jason Bourne.
She was the blueprint.
Oh my god.
So, cut to this intelligence agency. There's this guy named Mr. Perkins who's briefing the president about how, like, well, so we lost an agent 8 years ago and now she's resurfaced. And the president is like, how could you do that? And what was she a part of? And he was like, oh, counter-assassination. She was part of Chapter. And the president's like, look, I don't want to hear all this shit. You dumped this in my lap. You guys lost track of an agent. There's all this crazy shit happening. And now you bring it to me, and now you wonder why I don't invest in the intelligence community. And I put instead the funds that I would give to you into healthcare. And I was just like,
I wish.
I wish. The thing is that, heck yeah, like, give money to the health system, because God knows we need it. But the way that it's kind of played in the movie, I can't really figure out what the movie is advocating for here, if it's advocating for anything, but it sounds kind of snide. It kind of makes the president sound like he's actually the asshole for putting public funds into healthcare instead of properly funding the intelligence community.
Well, yeah, there's two reads you can do, and the movie doesn't really, at least we've all talked about it, we can't really figure out what side it lands on. But one read is the intelligence community was overfunded and created this crazy assassin program that's now running loose in the streets, and that's a bad thing, so put the money towards healthcare. Or they didn't fund the intelligence community enough and spending money on frivolous things like
healthcare.
Haha, so silly.
And I don't know where it lands, really.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe that's really for the viewer to decide, which is actually pretty shocking because most movies try to, like, tell you what to think here. But so I was like, this one is a little less clear. Surely they're not so dense, I don't know, that they wrote a whole movie about how the intelligence community invents problems so that they can get funding, just to turn around and say, actually, it's the fault of not getting taxpayer money.
I mean, at the very least, it's not like Michael Bay military apologism.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll give points for that and move on.
Yeah, anyway, this has obviously caused a big stir. So, Sam and Mitch are driving, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. And she's got this postcard apparently telling an uncle or something about her engagement to a guy. So, like, maybe we can find this guy. And then she's, like, sort of searching through her effects, and she finds this book that also is from her uncle or something like that. And it has his name in there. It's clear that he knows her. So she tracks down his number, and she calls him. And it's William Stryker from X-Men. That actor.
Who is still playing a shady government agent, but,
yeah,
like, kind of a good one this time.
And he's basically like, oh my god, Charlie, is that you? You don't remember who you are? You could be in danger, we gotta meet. But he also says some asshole kind of things. For the whole time that he's in the movie, he's delivering some pretty scathing lines, which are really good, but...
Yeah, like, honestly, like, he dies pretty quickly, but he's really entertaining for the brief time that he's in the movie, because he always seems to have one over on everybody until the single moment when he doesn't. There is the Chekhov's dick gun that gets established at this point.
Mm-hmm. No, not
actually,
at this point.
It gets
later.
established a little bit later, yes.
So anyway, they call him, they arrange to meet, but they need to stay the night somewhere before they meet him. And so, at this point, Mitch is starting to notice how sort of erratic Sam is acting, because she's frustrated and she's starting to curse like a sailor. And he's like, what's up with you? You were all phooey, I burnt the muffins, and now you're saying fucking shit and blah blah blah. And she doesn't really care for his critique. But
then she has a trauma nightmare.
Yeah.
First, she finds in the false bottom of the suitcase,
she finds a fucking sniper rifle
broken down into pieces, and then she knows instantly by reflex how to assemble.
Yeah, she knows how to put it together, so she puts it together, and then she has this, like, weird vision of her other self slitting her throat, and it freaks her out, and she wakes up, but the sniper rifle is still there, and she's really upset about it, so she's making these, like, distressed noises, and then Mitch comes in to try to, you know, be like, hey, what's wrong? I heard yelling, and she reflexively picks up her gun and, like... fires it and almost kills him, and
like,
understandably,
him by, like, 3 inches.
Understandably, he's like, we are not doing this. I'm going the fuck home. I don't care about your money. Take it back. This is like nuts. I don't want to be part of it at all.
But then Mitch and Samantha have a heart-to-heart in the car, and he eventually decides, okay, well, I am going to help you after all. Let's go to Jersey.
And I think it's because he understands she has a kid. She's got to figure this out before she goes back to her kid.
And he's kind of in a similar situation where it's like, I kind of have a fucked up relationship with my kid, too. If I had a clear path towards fixing that, I'd want to take it.
Yeah.
I do appreciate a willingness to leave from a character. Because anyone in that situation would be like, fuck you, I'm out.
Yeah.
Bye. That's very realistic.
Yeah, it was really nice and not something that you often see in movies. Because, no, for plot convenience, they must stay together. No, this person would leave.
Mm-hmm. He would leave, and in this case, he made a choice for reasons that made sense to him.
Yeah.
He wasn't forced to stay, he chose to. Until eventually, when he's just kind of forced to.
Well, I get
but this was the important first step, basically.
But then they have to go to a train station in Jersey to meet up with shady government guy.
Yeah, and so they get there a little bit early, and Mitch is like, something's not right here. I don't like this. So he puts, like, a gun in his pocket.
Put the gun in my pocket. And also there's this wonderful, wonderful quote. What do you want me to do? Shove it down my pants and shoot my dick off?
And then
To which Samantha Kane, who has unlocked her full sass at this point, says, "What are you, a sharpshooter?"
Actually, Samantha Kane was also very witty. So, like, that's a trait that she and Charlie have in common. Mm-hmm. Charlie's just a little more vicious about it. So, they roll up to the train station. Mitch has the gun in his coat pocket, and she goes inside, and she's having a drink at the train station as she's waiting for the government guy that she contacted to show up.
Orders her a beer.
Yeah, someone orders her a beer. When we see him, he's the guy who was torturing the guy earlier, and his name is Timothy. And he's like, "Hey, man, do I know you from somewhere?" And she's like, no. And he's like, "Wow, you're really not lying." So he's like, really cottoned on to the fact that she really is not faking. Like, she does not remember him at all.
And he fancies himself a human lie detector.
So he is like, "Oh, okay, sorry, my bad, enjoy your beer," and walks away, and on his little, like, whatever, it's not a walkie-talkie, but however they're communicating, he's like, "Okay, move in close, do them both, then we're done here." This is part of what, like, strains believability, which, you know, you should leave that at the door when you watch this movie. But for me, what happens next, I feel like this, I don't know. It was big news later in the story. There's lots of news stories running about the kinds of carnage that's happening, but I'm also just like, what was their excuse? Like, what was the government's excuse going to be to cover up the fact that they were involved in this? This guy starts approaching Sam and, his name, Mitch.
He's right there.
Yeah.
How can you forget about me?
And at first they think it's the, you know, government guy that they're supposed to meet, but then, just in the nick of time, Sam sees that he has a gun folded up in his newspaper, and she reaches into Mitch's pocket and shoots the gun that he has in his pocket at him and kills the guy, and then all hell breaks loose, and there's crazy shit that happens. You know, there's all these gun guys who are, like, running in. There's a grenade that explodes. They have to jump out a window and, you know, into an icy lake.
It's the slowest moving explosion I've seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
They have time to have, like, a little chat as they're running.
Yeah. But they make it out, and they're also being shot at in the parking lot, but then this guy whips up and he's like, "Get in here right now!" And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "Get the fuck in here!" And so they get in there, and it turns out he is the actual government guy that they were supposed to be meeting, and he's explaining to Charlie, he's like, "You are an agent for the United States government. Also, sorry, you might have to kill your friend here later, just because of what he's hearing right now." And, you know, she and Mitch are both just like, "What are you talking about?" Mitch is laughing because he's in hysterics. She's crying. It's a big old mess. And he's telling him all the stuff about her. Yeah, that her name is, like, Charlie. And eventually they, like, pull over. He is trying to give them, I guess, more of the lowdown. And they decide that they don't actually trust this guy.
Which fair,
yeah.
They're wrong, but it's a fair assumption.
Yeah, because they're like, how did these guys show up, like, right before you showed up? How did they know that we were supposed to be here? And, the old government guy's like, "I mean, I know this sounds cliche or whatever, but my phone was tapped." And they're like, "Yeah, your phone was tapped. Whatever." And they, like, beat the shit out of him and steal his car. And they're like, "We gotta find somebody else to ask about my identity. So let's go see my ex-fiance.
It's gonna be just fine. No problems whatsoever."
Yeah, and they drive out to this old farmyard or whatever. It's like house out in the middle of nowhere. And it's actually, like, a really nice, sprawling sort of, country estate.
Area.
Yes. And there's this guy, and he seems just, like, very, very normal. Sam thinks, yeah, I must know him because I'm remembering all these odd little details about them. And so she's, like, really relieved. This guy seems a lot nicer. Then the government guy ends up tracking them there, and he's talking to Mitch while Sam is talking to this dude. He's like, "Who is this guy?" And Mitch explains, "Well, I got his address from a postcard saying that Sam was engaged to him," and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "Blah, blah, blah. That's like a secret code for that this is Daedalus, and she was sent here to kill him, and oh god, it's not safe." And then, all hell breaks loose. Right when they're like, "Sam, no, no, it's a trap. And long story short,
Sam ends up tied to a water wheel that's suspended over freezing water.
Yeah.
Mitch ends up tied up and naked in a basement.
Like beat up and stuff.
Secret government operative guy is like super dead in the water right below Sam.
Yeah. And Daedalus, which is the guy that she was engaged to, not really, and Timothy, they're like torturing her. They're like dunking her in the ice cold water. And she's like, I don't know anything. Until suddenly, she does. The switch flips, and after being dunked in the cold water and tortured so many times, Charlie comes back to the surface.
What if that's in all of us? You guys want to dunk me in some cold water
and find out?
I mean,
there's like a badass.
I can tell you right now, if you dunked me in cold water repeatedly, I would fucking kill some people. Like you would see it pretty fast, actually.
I've seen the look in her eye.
But hey, guys, do you want to have just some casual, like, fun dunking each other in ice cold water?
Wait, that's a TikTok trend.
Are you for real?
Yes. So you put
the ice bucket challenge already happened though.
This is different because they have like an ice water bowl in front of them, and one friend or significant other will stand behind the other one and ask them a question about the other one, and if they get it wrong, they get dunked in the water. And some people are like super aggressive with it, and that's a thing.
Again, I would murder.
You would kill me.
You
This
want
would
to
not
get
be
all
fun.
those questions right, Jamie.
You want to pretend, even if I get some wrong.
No. If I dunked her in the ice water.
Oh yeah,
I
you'd
would
be
die.
you'd be like, yes, sure, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
You got it right.
You're so right, babe.
So true, bestie.
Here's a warm towel for your face.
Yeah. I thought so.
But yeah, eventually Charlie activates and shoots Daedalus with Chekhov's dick gun.
Oh yeah,
Then she fishes out of the dead in his trousers.
The government dude who was driving them around earlier, he talks about how he always packs 3 guns, and one of them he packs like right next to his dick, because of course people don't want to feel up a man's junk. So, or, most male agents don't want to do that. She remembers that. She, like, reaches into his cold corpse pants and, like, pulls out that gun on one of the times that they dunk her down there, because she manages to get her hand free. When Daedalus is pulling her back up, she goes, bam, 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 bam.
She pulls out her gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she pulls out her gun and started blasting. And she's asking him questions like about what Project Honeymoon is and all this other stuff. And she doesn't get a lot of information.
Because he dies.
Yeah, or actually she doesn't ask him about Project Honeymoon. She asks him where Hennessy is, which is Mitch. And she does find him. There's this great scene where he's like down there in the basement and he's super traumatized because poor Mitch is just super traumatized. And he hears all this crazy gunfire, and he looks up, and she opens the cellar door, and she's backlit, and she's just this woman with these 2 big-ass guns in her little slip or whatever.
And that's when I came.
Fair.
And then she rescues him. And the next thing we know...
They're in, like, Atlantic City.
Yeah, they're in a hotel room. You have sort of this slightly sexy glow-up montage where she is washing herself in the shower. It's not as sexy as a lot of shower scenes, but...
You do get a full side body shot, which is pretty sexy.
Oh, you know what else? Sorry. Geena Davis, she's fit, but she's like a little stick insect, right?
Yes.
And they keep trying to claim that she's frumpy or something, like that she's
big ass.
That she has a big ass and she's frumpier than she... And I guess, this is because probably the script was imagining a more normal, not athletic-looking person to play Samantha.
Well, Geena Davis looks like a fucking Olympian.
Yeah, but Geena Davis is like, they did not translate that well between, like, script and screen. And they still keep trying to convince us that she's frumpy and that she has a fat ass, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Yeah. I guess another like content warning, like
body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
90s heroin chic
in full force.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that line in The Craft where Nancy's like, "Oh, I wish I had a smaller ass." Like, girl, what ass?
But also, why? Everyone want a fat ass.
Yeah,
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone like a thick ass.
Why do you think I do so many squats when I go to the gym?
Squats.
Anyway, so That's really annoying, but she looks great. They do this shower scene, but it's not too gratuitous, I would say. And then
she gets like a super spy glow up where she bleaches her hair and does edgy eyeliner. And then Mitch gets a glow up where he gets to get on his best studs and gets cleaned up and gets a nice shaving.
And then she appears and he's like, "What the fuck? Who are you?" And she's like, "Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the spy." And she's fucking with him the entire time. They do not fuck, but she's just screwing around with him.
She notices his gunshot wound that he had gotten earlier. He's like, "Oh, well, you're seeping." And just like...
opens her bathrobe and she's like, "Here, look at these." And as he's ogling, rips off his bandages. She just kind of wants to like resume her life as if 8 years did not pass.
As a whole ass kid, so...
Well, and she really doesn't...
Everyone wants her dead.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. She's really in denial about her kid and her husband. She just doesn't want anything to do with them because she's like, "I didn't choose to live this life. This was a fantasy and I didn't choose it. I was impaired, whatever." Her more immediate problem is, she's like, "I want to get back to work, but I don't trust Perkins or any of the people that I used to work with," which is a good impulse.
So, Mitch, I'm going to use you as bait to try to draw out those shady government operatives.
And as it turns out, without getting too much into the weeds, turns out that they're all rotten, and she's trying to figure out, why is it that first I was sent to kill Daedalus, and now I'm public enemy number one here.
Yeah, now that he's dead, that's a huge problem.
Somewhere in here, she tries to seduce Mitch, and Mitch is like, "Okay, you know what? No. This is, like, not that you're not beautiful, but this is wrong. Also, I don't particularly like you. I like the little school teacher. She was pretty great. But you're kind of a fucking piece of work, and I know what you're doing. You're trying to forget or destroy anything that you have left with your husband and your daughter." He's like, "I'm not going to be a part of that." And I'm like, fuck yeah. Good job, buddy.
There's a couple of plot beats where he's like, "Oh, you just keep saying I, like you don't need me anymore." And then she punts him out the passenger side door of their station wagon. And he just lays there in the street smoking a cigarette, just waiting.
He's like, "This is where I am
and
now."
Then there's traffic coming back and forth.
There's some, like, hobos on the side of the street watching on in interest.
He just
and
doesn't
then she
care.
pulls back around and grabs him.
And she's like, "Yep, I actually have a use for you after all. I really got to leave the country, so I have a bunch of money, actually."
I have a bunch of money in fake IDs and a safe deposit box.
But she's like, "Here's the thing. The safety deposit box key, it's back at home on the keychain around
It's
my
on my
daughter's,
child's
like, teddy bear. And I don't really want to run into them, but I kind of got it. But I need you eventually to take that key and open the safety deposit box for me, and then I can, like, get away scot-free." They head back into her town. Mitch is sort of the lookout, and she goes into her house. She's looking for Mr. Perkins the teddy bear, and she finds him. But she can't resist looking out through her sniper scope at the church across town where her daughter is in, like, a Christmas pageant or whatever. And she sees her daughter and her husband, and it's clear that she's having a lot of feelings about that. But then Mitch starts honking the horn because, of course, if the government is looking for her, they're going to look at her place of residence. He's having to drive away from the bad guys. They're trying to shoot him. This has got to be a pretty wild time in this New England town.
Which... even despite that, none of the people in town seem to be reacting to any of that happening.
Yeah. She has to put on her skates and, like, skate with her sniper rifle across the frozen lake, shoots the 3 guys who are in the car that's chasing Mitch. So she saves Mitch's ass yet again. And then she gets in the car and they're getting ready to go out of town when, unbeknownst to her, at the church, or after the Christmas pageant, Timothy has shown up and he kidnaps her daughter. And so, as she's driving out of town, once again, I think Mitch is actually mentioning something about her, like, daughter and stuff like that. He has a couple of times now put the screws to her and been like, "You need to fucking call your daughter. Give her the impression that her mommy gives a fuck." You know, like, he's just basically like...
It's 2 days to Christmas, and maybe she might be under the mistaken impression that mommy might give a shit.
He's really good at being like, "You need to actually be a parent to your child, okay?" They're driving out of town. She's kind of got some mixed feelings. He's basically like, "Hey, you know what? I don't think the Samantha Cain thing was all an act. I just think you forgot to hate yourself. And that's why you kind of resent it so much." Mm-hmm. But right at this time, Timothy gives her a ring on her cell phone, and the only way he could have her cell phone number is because it was written on her daughter's cast. And he's like, I kidnapped your kid, no funny business. Long story short, they end up tracking and figuring out where Timothy is and where he's holding her daughter, kind of around Niagara Falls. And it starts falling together
for Deer Lick Motel.
Yeah. And it starts falling together for Charlie, kind of what's happening. She doesn't know the specifics, but she's like, definitely, it seems like the government and these former terrorists or like criminals are working together.
Basically, they're going to put together a false flag terror attack in upstate New York so that the government will give this shady intelligence agency more money.
Yeah, and they're going to use Islamophobia to do it.
Literally, they're like, okay, we'll pin it on the Muslims. It'll be just like the World Trade Center bombing in 93. And literally every one of us millennials who was very aware during 9/11 were like, oh,
fuck.
Well.
This just goes to show you that all the things that happened were very predictable.
Yep.
The kinds of weird ultranationalism and Islamophobia.
Clearly, a lot of this distrust of the government and Islamophobia was in the public consciousness.
None of this stuff came out of left field. People were aware of the dangers of it a decade before 9/11 happened.
Spicy morsel warning.
And still leaned into it.
Yeah, and still leaned into it.
happened.
Still fell for it.
We're looking at you, Toby Keith.
God damn it, Toby Keith.
Yeah.
Good God. Chill out, dude.
Anyway, she and Mitch show up at the Deer Lick Motel. She watches as Perkins flies his helicopter in and gets out and is met by Timothy, and they go into where they're keeping her daughter, and she's like, oh my god, if it was just Timothy alone, we might have had a chance, but they have Perkins and, like, the government resources on their side. We're gonna fucking die. You know, she's like, I gotta still do something anyway, but we're gonna die.
She was like, they're gonna blow my head off.
You know, she looks at Mitch before she goes to get her daughter, and she's like, this is the last time I'm gonna be pretty. And she kisses him.
And we were discussing this, like, it's a really interesting movie kiss.
Yes.
It's not sexy.
It's not sexual,
And
it's not romantic even.
You can make a really strong argument for it not being romantic. It's just affectionate.
It communicates a lot of things. It's sorrow and a thank you and
A goodbye.
a goodbye.
Yeah. And then, I'm not going to have a face in a minute.
Yeah.
So I might as well do this while I still have a mouth.
And just to, like, have human connection. Like, a certain kind of intimate human connection before you think you're going to die. That's something that, I don't know,
It's underappreciated.
It's underappreciated, and particularly in America, I think the only reasons why we think people should ever kiss are for romantic or sexual reasons. But I'm like, kisses can communicate so much. A kiss in itself is not romantic or sexual. It is a form of intimacy, but that intimacy doesn't have to be those things.
Yeah.
Normalize kissing your bros.
Yeah. Kiss your bros on the mouth.
Kiss the homies goodnight.
Yeah. Anyway, but I always really like that moment. So she goes, and she does successfully manage to, like, get her daughter out of where they're holding her, which Perkins, by the way, he went in to check on Caitlin with Timothy. He, like, brought a doll with him, because he was like, you know, it's almost Christmas, and I'm not a total monster.
Yeah, totally not. Definitely not.
Anyway, so she's holding the doll when her mom grabs her. But her mom grabs her, she's taken her outside. They expected her to come, and they capture her, and they capture Mitch as well. When she's running away from them, she, like, ends up in this, like, basement area.
Okay, so it's like a boiler room, and it's full of gigantic barrels of kerosene, like 55-gallon barrels of kerosene, and she's just, like, spraying semi-automatic fire all over this room full of high-pressure vessels flammable liquids.
Which she didn't know that's what was in there, but it's also, like, in most action movie physics, this would immediately explode.
Like,
anyway.
the entire building would be on the moon.
But that's not what happens. The government officials are like, hey, we could drop a match down there and burn you guys alive, or not. So, you have 30 seconds to decide how you want to play this. And in that 30 seconds, she uses the doll that Perkins gave her daughter to sort of, like, suck up a bunch of kerosene into the doll. Just in case. Just in case this becomes important later.
Sometimes you just need Chekhov's baby doll full of kerosene.
Yeah. They take her into this freezer, and they've explained at this point, yes, we're going to use a chemical bomb to fake a terrorist attack so that we can get our funding. Timothy puts her in this freezer where they're gonna let her freeze to death, and she's like, please spare my daughter. She's your daughter too.
Yeah.
Like 8 years ago, while she was doing this whole mission where she was trying to infiltrate and kill Timothy and Daedalus, she fucked Timothy. Actually, the thing with the guy earlier who was a criminal, he was one of Timothy's associates, and Timothy told him, like, hey, I know she looks dead, but she's not, and she's the Energizer fucking bunny, so you better just make it look like she overdosed on heroin and leave her alone. And in the course of him trying to fake her having an overdose, she, like, grabs the needle and puts it through his eye, and that's why he has such a grudge against her. But then she falls off these seaside cliffs, and that's how she, like, ended up in the ocean.
No. She actually gets shot. She did.
Well, yeah,
actually,
she
that's
did.
right.
She got grazed.
Yeah, she
There's
got...
like a glancing blow to her skull, that's right.
Yeah, she, and then she fell off into the ocean, washed up on the beach, and that's how she, like, ended up where she was. Anyway, she's like, that is your daughter. Don't put her in here with me. Please, spare her.
He has, like, this moment of recognition of, oh shit, I think she is my daughter. Oh well,
Oh,
put her
well.
in the deep freeze anyway.
Yeah.
I'm a sociopath.
So she's like, you're gonna die screaming right before he leaves. And he's like, yeah, right. And she's like, am I lying? And he's like, oh shit, you're not. But he
And-
doesn't think it's possible that she will get out.
And this look that she gives him as the freezer door is closing, I came again.
Yeah. She does look pretty psychotic.
But, like,
Yeah.
fun psychotic.
Fun psychotic.
Okay, again, I've said it before in this program. I'll say it again. I'm into women who could kill me, and men who never would.
Yeah.
It's my two types.
Yeah. So then she starts in on her plan, which is to, like, basically, this freezer is right next to this cellar room with all the kerosene in it. So she, like, makes this little channel under the freezer door, and she takes the baby with the kerosene in it, and she makes it pee into this little rivulet, and she's, like, trying to strike a spark, and it's just not working, and it starts to dawn on her. She's like, oh my god, me and my daughter, which she is now definitely on the, like, god damn it, I care about my baby girl train, and she's like, we're gonna die. And she starts crying, and she's freaked out. And her daughter's like, don't cry, mama. And then she pulls out of her cast. She's kept her matches to light her vigil candles in her cast. And she's like, I've got some of these. Which, of course, she's like, oh my god, Caitlin, thank you, I love you. But I was also just like, damn, kid, you waited this long to
You're
get
gonna
her.
start that forever.
Yeah.
Also, side note about the baby doll thing. I didn't put the kerosene thing together at first, so I was like, is that one of those dolls that pees? They had those back then?
They did.
They
is
did.
the thing.
And so I was like, huh.
Flammable
Interesting choice. But then I was like, oh, kerosene. Got it.
So, official tangent time again. So the 90s were like a hotbed of those really crazy baby doll ideas. The pissing baby doll.
And the chewing gum.
Oh, well, I'm getting to that one. I'm building up to that one. There's also the one where you mixed up the weird powder with water to make a baby food goo, and then it would, like, shit. Like, weird baby food paste. Because realism, I guess.
The Long Kiss Goodnight should have used a kerosene baby doll to market this movie.
That would have... Oh, my God. Like, a lighter baby doll.
Yes! They didn't have us
Teach baby how to play safely with fire with your own kerosene baby doll.
Hey listeners, look out for the official Media Morsels baby doll lighter coming soon. There was also, like Jess was saying, there was this,
chewing
like, the real eating, like, solid food eating baby doll, and there were these, like, long plastic, almost like Kit Kat shaped things that you would feed in, but the problem was
Yeah.
that very often little girls' hair would get entangled in the mouth of these baby dolls, and there were no safety stops, so they would just tear their hair out.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a Cabbage Patch doll. We actually have one.
Jesus.
Yeah, I actually
Worse
remember.
than Furbies, and that's saying a lot.
Furbies are great.
I remember the
You can
news.
have that opinion.
I remember the news story where they had somebody.
A little girl got her hair torn
Yeah,
out.
it wasn't just her hair; like a piece of her scalp
Yep.
got torn off, and it was
Well, again,
nuts.
there were no safety stops on these things. It was the wild fucking west of baby dolls.
There's also Tumbleina, where the head is really, really heavy, and the whole idea is to tumble the baby. Some people tumbled them down the stairs.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway. Dude, toy manufacturers didn't think about these things, I guess, in the 90s.
Again, the 90s were a wild time for toys.
Mm-hmm.
Even Cabbage Patch dolls had really heavy heads. I used to use that thing as a weapon.
Uh-huh.
I hit my brother with that thing.
like a morning star.
So, like, my parents in their generation talk about lawn darts and shit, but, like, what about all those toys that, you know, would eat children's heads? And the weird, like, spinny fairy toys that would, like, go off.
Oh, I love those! Oh, I had those!
Okay, but, like, I literally could not think about those without thinking about the video of one, like, lifting into the air and immediately flying into the fireplace.
Yeah.
Moon shoes sucked. I got some secondhand ones. They were very
Moon
bad.
shoes. Also,
Yeah.
skip it.
Skip it was actually
skip
pretty
it,
good.
yeah.
That also could be used as a
But
weapon.
you could use that, yeah, definitely as a weapon. And kids did.
And, yes.
They did.
But Skip it was actually pretty legit.
Yep.
Unless you're uncoordinated like some of these people here.
Well,
And then it was a real hazard, yeah. Well, then you learned something, didn't you, kid?
Don't play with skip it.
yeah.
Anyway, so...
90s kids remember Tangent officially concluded.
Yeah.
Skip it is why I have bad knees.
Oh no!
Oh no.
Sorry, we can conclude it now.
No. I need to know a little bit more.
Well, I was just thinking about, like, the motion that you'd have to make, and I don't even think I could do that now, which must mean that it's the Skip It's fault.
Maybe. Definitely not has nothing to do with being in your 30s.
No,
No,
definitely
not at
not
all.
that.
I definitely did not have a, like, huge visible back spasm last week.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Mama Charlie's crying. Caitlin's like, look, here's the matches. And she's like, oh, Caitlin, I love you. And Caitlin's like, Mommy, are we gonna die? And she's like, no, baby, we're not. And she lights the match and she's like, they are.
So good.
And drops the match
And
and
then
like...
I came again.
Yeah. And she drops the match and, like, you know, it follows the kerosene out into the kerosene room and then it, like, blows up.
You know, the basement full of kerosene that every hotel has.
I mean, in New England, maybe, though,
Maybe,
because
that's
of,
true.
like, generators and stuff.
shit.
Anyways, it not only blows up that foundation part and blows the door off the freezer that they're in, it also blows through, like, the top 3 floors, and it flings Mitch, who has been sitting tied up in a chair on the top floor, out
Through the sign of the hotel.
Out the window.
Perfectly framed.
through the sign, and then lands in the forest, and he's like, ouch, that hurt.
And is somehow not dead. And immediately kills a man by throwing a knife that he has in his belt and hitting him in the throat.
Well, it's the knife that Timothy threatened him with, but
and
yeah.
he does not say the line, chefs do that.
Well, how could
Yeah,
he?
he
It
wouldn't
would
have
have been
known.
perfect, but he would never have known.
Yeah, he would
Yeah.
never have known, but like this movie is all about repeating plot beats, and that is such an obvious one.
What if she had seen it from somewhere and been like, "Chef,
Just
do that"?
shouts it out
That would have been so good.
Yes! Missed opportunity.
So now Charlie is able to escape. So she and her daughter are escaping, but now everybody is alerted to something's wrong. So there's all these people with guns out there, and she's like, go, run, hide, Katie. Caitlin the to the nearby truck, and there's like a toolbox that she can fit in kind of on the side of the truck, and she gets in there, and it locks.
Oh, yes. This perfectly safe truck that's a bomb.
I mean, she's a
Wasn't it?
child.
Yeah.
She is kind of
Like, hiding place.
Yeah, she doesn't know what... I have this weird dual consciousness where it's like, an 8-year-old child does not know that this truck is a bomb. And, god damn it, child, that truck
Yeah.
is a bomb!
Yeah, well, and she also probably couldn't really run
Very
Yeah.
far.
very far because there's people firing guns everywhere.
Like dozens of them.
And in any other scenario, a metal box, when people are firing guns, is like,
It
a
would
good bet.
seem, yeah,
Unless the metal box is attached to a bomb.
yeah,
In which case...
because the truck is a chemical bomb that they're gonna like roll into the center of this nearby town and then let go off. Anyway, also like she's attached to that now, and they've only got like 20 minutes before it's supposed to like go critical or whatever. She and Mitch are scrambling to get to Caitlin, but Mitch gets seriously injured.
Yeah, he gets shot in the shin and the chest.
Yeah.
And he looks like shit.
The
Yeah.
truck starts to drive off. Caitlin somehow manages to, like, hijack a car.
No. Caitlin
Or not
doesn't.
Caitlin, sorry.
Although that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
I want an 8-year-old to hijack a car.
I mean, she is the child of Charlie and Timothy, the baddest motherfuckers who ever fucked. That child is going to be unkillable.
That would have been great if she had boss kill.
Yeah, missed
But-
opportunity.
Yeah.
So Charlie manages to hijack a car. She follows the truck. She manages to hijack the truck. They were not prepared for this eventuality, like the government.
I looked away for like a split second, and she was in like a car, and then looked back up, and she was already in the truck. I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
She like kicked out the guy who was driving it basically in under 5 seconds.
She drives it away from the town, and since they're at Niagara
Well,
Falls,
okay,
it's
so-
really, really close to the Canadian border.
Importantly, the brakes go out on the truck as she is going through town, so she's like having to dodge through a Christmas parade in a semi-truck without brakes.
I can buy this because there was a lot of gunfire, so I'm like, yeah, maybe it
Yeah,
nicked
the brakes absolutely would go out.
So they end up crashing the truck basically on the bridge between America and Canada.
Breaks through a median or something, lands on its side, skids a hole.
Fortunately, on the side where, Caitlin's little, box is on the upper side.
I still hold that child would be pate, regardless of what side of the truck she was on.
Hey now, we've already established earlier in this episode that Harrison Ford survives a fridge during a nuke. Surely this child will be fine.
She is the child of Charlie and Timothy, the two baddest motherfuckers who ever fucked. That child is unkillable. Charlie crawls out of this truck. She's really beat up at this point. She and Timothy have to scuffle before she kicks him down this hole. I don't know. He somehow ends up in the river below, but that doesn't kill him. I thought it'd be really funny if at this point he, also gets amnesia.
Yeah.
And, turns into Bob Ross or whatever.
Yeah. And, at some point, I forget exactly how it happens, but eventually we end up with, a flaming corpse suspended over the bridge by Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Because it's a Christmas movie, lest we forget.
Yeah. She's mortally wounded now. She's really beat to fuck up. So she limps up there and she gets her daughter out of the side of the truck and she's like, go, you need to run, don't look back. I'm right behind you, but the truck is a bomb, so you need to go. And her daughter runs off into the fog and she falls over and she's pretty much giving up. But her daughter runs back and is like, no, Mom, I'm sorry I left you. Come on, you've got to get up. You're not dead. Get up. Life is pain. You just get through it. Get up. And eventually...
She does get up.
There's more gunfire because Timothy's shown back up. Charlie uses the, truck radio and she's like, please, my daughter is here. Somebody please come and get her. Stop shooting, yada, yada, yada.
Who should hear the call to action but Mitch?
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da.
Mitch managed
Such a good callback.
He managed to crawl into another truck that had a car in it, and it's part of this larger plan that, if you watch the movie, you'll pick up what that was. But he's also in very bad shape. This man is inches from death, but he
manages to gun this shitty little sedan out of the back of the Ryder van that it's packed into and run over 6 bad guys in the process.
And he pulls up. He's like, Sam, get in. Charlie/Sam puts her daughter in the car, but Timothy's shooting at the car, so she's like, no, shoot at me, and distracts him. And then she gets to the Christmas string lights.
With the flaming corpse
that also has an Uzi, because he was one of the government people, and she sees that Uzi and she's like, that, I'm gonna get that.
My
And-
good hot man.
I don't know, she pulls whatever trick that is with the chandelier where you cut it and it pulls you up and...
Right rope.
And then she grabs the flaming hot gun.
Yeah, it's gotta be really hot.
Up,
And
then
she...
shoots her shitty ex, which mood.
Yeah, and he does die screaming. I think she's like, die screaming, motherfucker. And he does fall out after being shot a bunch, and he falls onto the top of the truck that is overturned. That's a bomb that's about to go off at any second now.
Dear listeners, I hold a master's degree in biochemistry. They drop that this is a chemical bomb that will detonate at, I think it was 213 degrees Celsius. 100 degrees Celsius is boiling water temperature. This truck is about to detonate, so when he lands on it, it is at minimum twice boiling water temperature. And he does in fact land with a sizzle as a Whopper on a grill.
Yeah. So he's a sizzling cooked bacon fat on that truck, And Charlie manages to dive into the car, and Mitch floors it, and...
They get to have their badass driving away from explosions thing?
Yeah, and it explodes.
This is the second time that they've escaped from a very, very slow-moving explosion.
It's true!
Because they were running away from one in a bar.
And now they're driving away from one on a bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they drive into Canada. There's all these cars raining down around them from the explosion. And Caitlin looks over at Mitch and she's like, "Don't hit the cars!" And Mitch looks over at her like,
He gives
such an expression.
Okay, this isn't a line because it's just a facial expression from Samuel L. Jackson, but it still somehow remains my favorite line of the movie because he gives this child a look like, if I weren't trying to save your life, I'd fucking kill you right now.
Or he's just like, you think? Kind of like, I don't know. It's an interesting facial expression.
Truly great face acting. I love it.
And so they keep driving a little while and until eventually everybody needs to stop. And both the adults are just so banged up.
And somehow even the 8-year-old has like the 1,000-yard stare going on.
But they've made it. They've made it, and there's this, I don't know, there's this like really sweet scene. And it's very short, and there's not a lot of dialogue. It's just like the feeling is a really like good feeling.
They just could have a moment.
Yeah. And she's like, "Hey, Mitch, did you forget that we're rich?" Because she has the like key. So now we cut into the final part of the movie. Charlie, I think, has gone back to going by Samantha, but the president calls her as she's driving somewhere, and he's like, "Thank you so much. America owes you a debt. Are you sure you don't want to come back and work for the government?" And she's like, "Nah, I got papers to grade," because she's gone back to being a school teacher. And he's like, "Well, it would pay a lot." And she's like, "You'd be surprised what being a good teacher pays." She has this briefcase full of money next to her, so she's independently wealthy.
And the president's like, "Oh yeah, I need to work on that."
Yeah, like next term.
For next term.
So anyway, but she's like, "But you can do one thing for me. If you want to give the people a hero, let it be Mitch." And so there's this bit with him talking on Larry King while his ex-wife and his son are both staring in awe at the TV. In the end, Perkins is facing like a bajillion counts of treason. Sam and her husband and her daughter have all relocated. She's staying with her husband because her husband is ride or die. Like, before she left on this whole mission, he was like, "It doesn't matter who you were before you were Samantha. I love you no matter what."
And that remains true.
And that
the
remains
movie
true.
Fucking pays that off.
Yeah.
In fact, it seems like he's kind of turned on by her ability to kill a cricket by throwing a knife, which, same, dude.
Yeah. And in the end,
I'm sorry.
The personas of Samantha and Charlie sort
they
of
fuse.
Yeah, you got thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So they basically go and live essentially happily ever after. And you know that child, Caitlin, is gonna know how to like kick ass. Yeah. So yeah, there you have it. That is the movie. So now I think without any further ado, we should probably
mosey on to the dessert round.
Yeah.
Listeners of the show, or newcomers to the show, the dessert round is where we discuss the work in question and sort of our takeaways from it. For those of us who either grew up or were deeply influenced by the work, how it's influenced the things we've already done, and for those of us who have encountered it more recently, how we anticipate it will affect us in the future.
What you'll take away. So for me...
I mean, white hair and trauma.
Well, there's actually kind of a lot of things going on here. So, number one, I know it is a hokey action movie because it's meant to be just kind of a 90s action movie with crazy action physics and all that shit. I would argue that it has a lot of merit because it does set up these narrative mirrors. Mm-hmm. It sets these things up and then it pays off in the end, which you'd be surprised how many stories don't really get that. And it does it in very simple ways of the narrative mirroring, of little things that were said earlier in the story coming back and being relevant later. I also really appreciate that with many action movies, particularly where women are the lead, there is the impulse to whoever is sort of like the male counterpart in the story that there will be a romance, right? And that at some point she will be, despite clearly being the more competent one, that she'll be damseled. That doesn't really happen in this movie. And she does have someone who she loves. And she's also, like, as an action hero, she gets to be, and particularly as a female action hero, she gets to be well-rounded. She gets to have this softer, funnier, fun side. And then she also has the badass side of her. I mean, really what tends to happen with a lot of, even today, we're better about it now, but even today, we still have a lot of books that the female heroine is either stripped of her femininity and she has to basically be like, I'm not like other girls. I'm actually more like a man. Or they're like hypersexualized as a woman. And specifically hypersexualized as a woman, not like hyper feminine, but very sexualized. And I don't really think that this movie did that. Like, certainly she is sexy, but pretty much everything happens on her own terms. It doesn't actually linger too grossly on her in, like, a sexual way.
There's, like, one or two scenes where you could argue that.
But she also initiates the stuff.
It's all under her
feels
own power,
different. Yeah. And I just think that she gets to be a lot more like a traditional action hero. I mean, you could basically gender flip her.
Well, I saw this really good comparison post where somebody was discussing how Harley Quinn was filmed in Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Versus how she was filmed in Birds of Prey.
Yes.
As, like, male gaze versus female gaze, and how the angle of the camera and how she's dressed empowers her.
Yeah.
This feels like a female gaze movie.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like, I'm trying to think of if there's any obvious instances where it does the thing where it pans up from her, like, legs up to her face.
It really doesn't.
Maybe in that shower scene, but even then it's not in a gratuitous... It's sexual, but not in the kind of sexual way that those things are often done. I don't know, it's different.
It doesn't feel objectified.
Yeah. If it feels like she's sexy, it's almost because, like, she is participating and allowing it to be that way. It's not like you are a voyeur and you're sort of creepily sort of,
well, yeah,
I don't know.
This might be a weird pull, but it's like Bayonetta sexy. Where it's like, she is fully participating in, like, yeah, this is sexy, so what?
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like this definitely has a different vibe. Yeah. And again, Mitch gets to be a very complex character. He gets to have some character growth, but he still gets to be who he is, really. The love interest, her husband, is kind of like off there in the background, just being like a supportive husband. And he doesn't have to be hyper-masculine to be a worthy...
Yeah, he's just at home
man. Yeah, and that's exactly what she wants and what she loves, and it's admirable. It's not ever made fun of or anything like that. Yeah. And, then you've got the very flat characters of all the, like, government officials and the criminals, and her daughter is kind of there. She's not very complex. But what they do with Sam and with Mitch and Charlie, Charlie, Sam, and Mitch, is all very interesting, and their relationship they have with each other being totally non-sexual and non-romantic.
But still affectionate.
And still... There's, like, some meat on those bones. It's a one sort of respect and a one sort of appreciation and affection.
It's kind of how I've seen, like, queer platonic friendships described. It's more than just being really close friends, but it's not romantic attachment. It's some weird level of affection in between those two.
Well, and honestly, I think the only reason why we think of it as weird is because I feel like in a lot of modern American society, there's just these very specific kinds of buckets of relationship. There's familial, platonic, and romantic.
And that's it.
And that's it. Those are the three. And this is definitely portraying a relationship that isn't really any one of those things. Yeah. So from a character perspective, I think those are all very interesting and worthy things. And I feel like if I had a little more time to, like, actually sit on it and think on it, I would be able to, like, put my finger more on specifically how the movie achieves something that feels very different from the traditional, like, action heroine.
Maybe that's your takeaway for future works.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the vibes of it. I understand it instinctively and intuitively, but it's hard to verbalize. So, like, maybe at some point I'll come back on social media and be like, actually, let me talk more about this because this is fucking awesome. Or if I do, like, a YouTube channel or whatever. Yeah, I mean, my big takeaway from childhood is, like, deadly amnesia person with bleached white hair and probably eyeliner and an attitude who is very sexy when they're killing people.
And again, dear listener,
that is like an imprint on my psyche.
let us contemplate the fact that that's a very specific description, and yet somehow encompasses multiple very popular fictional characters.
I mean, I'm not the only one.
You can't be.
Yeah. So, I think that's like the major things for me. That's how it influenced me. And yeah, that has echoed through a lot of things that both I like and that I have created.
Mm-hmm.
Things that have not yet seen the light of day, but hopefully someday will.
Things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass.
Nerds.
Claire's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm also very hot for Galadriel. Always have been.
Also blonde.
True. But it's also Cate Blanchett.
For me, as a child, like I was saying, the only thing that really imprinted on me from this movie was, I was like, Geena Davis, blonde, guns. And I don't have a very good memory, so it's probably going to be Geena Davis, blonde, guns.
Amen.
But...
You're so right.
So true, bestie. But I do think that knowing that this movie really exists and understanding now as an adult what it's about, as a woman and as a feminist, I can be like, yes, this is what it looks like. This is what a woman being a badass in the 90s looks like. That existed. That was a thing. So,
You think this will like influence any of your future stuffs?
I don't know.
I mean, it'll be a fun comparison whenever you're reading your podcast stuff.
Ooh, you should announce that.
Yeah.
Well, she's a very different character from the type of women I usually read about.
Tell us more.
And because I read a lot of smut,
Oh?
your girl likes some erotic fiction. So, in that vein, we have started a paranormal romance podcast.
Yes.
In which I will recap the absolutely unhinged bullshit that I read and force these guys to witness the madness.
To listen, to react.
Yes.
Live slug reaction.
Live slug reaction.
Yes.
It's called This Book Sucks, and it's coming soon.
Yeah, I think tentatively in January.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to us as this episode releases a month from now, look
Yeah.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to sink my teeth into the hat.
Get out.
But it's my turn.
It is your turn.
Okay. My main takeaway is I really appreciated some of the, callbacks from earlier moments in the film.
Oh gosh.
A lot of the story beats. So the matches that were hidden in Caitlin's cast, the dick gun,
Yeah.
which is a literal Chekhov's
All
gun.
these things were really well telegraphed and really well timed because it gave you just enough time to kind of like forget that they mentioned it
Mhm.
and then was like, oh yeah, ha ha ha.
And so instances of Samuel L. Jackson's character is all like, nah, shit, I'm out of here. Like, actually having bits of realistic human expectations and, like, interactions with the ridiculousness that's happening around.
Well,
Yeah.
he was kind of like our everyman of like, fuck, what the hell is happening right now? Yeah.
And because initially you would have had that same reaction of, oh, there's a bomb heading towards wherever, like, why do we care? And the reason being is because the kid decides to hide in the bomb itself.
If 4,000
So, yeah.
people is too abstract for you,
Yeah.
Your child is not.
yeah.
Yeah, and like it gives a good reason of why these characters should still kind of pursue the betterment of the story. Like, why does this matter?
Yeah.
I appreciate those little tidbits.
So, like, as the graphic design guy or the scene chewer, were there any, like, visual elements that grabbed you?
okay, her skating across the ice rink and managing to shoot out a tire from a car that's, I'd say, about 20 feet above her head. That was a good shot.
It was gorgeous, yes.
She was getting barreled.
Good shot.
That car was then barreling towards her on that same ice rink, and she's able to nail each of the three guys in the car while it's moving towards her while skating. Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah.
That is a very visually striking moment.
Sexy.
Well, and, the opening credits.
Oh yeah, those were really, really nice. We had a project that we were supposed to look into movie intros and try and encapsulate a lot of those fun kind of elements, and I failed miserably on that project. However, if I had seen this movie, it would have been a very good inspiration.
So this was like back in school, in college?
Undergrad,
yeah.
Well, and dearest listeners, the Goblin Booth may also have some very interesting title cards in store for you in the near future.
I mean, the Goblin Booth has a lot of plans, actually. Like, a lot of plans, but we should go through your thing before we get to that.
Yes. Okay, so my dessert. Honestly, everybody sniped my dessert, because mine was going to be the narrative parallels. I am the plot guy, so I love to see seeds be planted and grow throughout the story. And everyone else has sort of addressed this, but God, does this movie ever really pay off in that respect? Because it is a constant sequence of setting up either a gag or a plot element and then paying it off, particularly that speech that she gives to her daughter on the ice skating rink of life is pain, you just gotta get up and get after it, and then her daughter echoing those words right back to her.
Which,
of survival.
Yeah, it's like, this is gonna traumatize, your child's gonna have to... While this can be an empowering thing to realize that, there are uncomfortable or painful things in life and you just kind of have to get used to that. I can see therapy bills for so many reasons.
But they have the money for it, so it's fine.
Yeah, they're fine. Well, and just that, the tension is constantly escalating, but they manage to do it without, it being too much, because the comedy is really well timed, too, to kind of, help release some of that tension.
Yeah, the thing about this movie is that the pacing just barely comes short of jumping the shark at every turn.
Yeah.
And it comes really close at the beginning when that guy with the incendiary shotgun kidnaps a bunch of carolers. That almost breaks the movie for me. It comes really close, but it pulls just short of me not wanting to watch anymore. But there's a lot to be said about the way that this movie treats tension, and that it has extremely tense moments that really feel like they come out of nowhere. They sideswipe you, but it also takes the time to have these breather moments in between.
The one-liners.
The one-liners help with the comedic relief, but also there's these real tender moments of pathos that they manage to pack in between. And most of those come from Mitch, who is introduced as this sort of gritty lowlife, but he is always more rooted in reality than either Samantha or Charlie. You feel for him the whole time.
Yeah.
I would say that of all the characters in this movie, Mitch is the one that comes closest to being kind of the audience surrogate. Because he is sort of that stable viewpoint around which all of this crazy bullshit is pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that very compelling. I think he's a really interesting choice of an audience viewpoint character, because he's not a typical choice. He's not the complete ignorant person coming into a situation. He has been around the block a couple times. He knows the world, and yet there are still things outside of his experience that are coming in and fucking everything up. So I think that's fantastic. That's something that I like to incorporate into my works, and something that I will be paying much more attention to in future.
I think one of the things, too, that strikes me about, this doesn't feel quite as objectifying of Geena Davis as as a woman action star as other things. It's a weird thing, but I think one of the reasons why is, for instance, the scene where she's tied to the water wheel in a skimpy little, white dress.
Yes.
I feel like in a lot of movies, they'd be she doesn't have a bra on, and you can very clearly see her nipples poking out, or something like that.
She looks on the verge of death.
Yeah, so she does look like a corpse, so that's not sexy.
Yeah, there's not a lot to go off of
but if you can see her nipples, it's not nearly as prominently displayed as it would be in so many other action movies. It feels like she actually is, number one, most women wear bras.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like in other kinds of movies and TV shows and stuff that I've seen that would incorporate that, there'd be this weird her
framing.
Yeah, there'd be this weird framing that would emphasize that
I feel like
we're being gritty here. She's near death, but she's also naked and like pinned to this thing, and she has this super thin, sheer white fabric, and it's sticking to her body.
Compare the scene to the scene in the first Avengers movie, where it's Natasha Romanoff who's being interrogated, and she's like in this really, really tight...
tied to a chair.
Yeah,
like
tied to a
cat suit.
Yeah, that kind of sexy versus water wheel Geena Davis.
That's a fair comparison, because like Geena Davis looks like she is uncomfortable. The framing of it is not like, oh, look at this woman's body that's on display. It is, this person is in a very vulnerable situation and on the verge of death.
Yeah.
Also probably trying to distract from the fact that her arms are
Well,
jacked.
I was about to
and
say
she's
that.
supposed to be a
Yes.
PTA mom. And they're like, oh wait, don't look at her arms, so they keep zooming in on her
I want to
face.
fall into Geena Davis's arms. Oh my god.
Oh, she can carry me off into the sunset.
I was about to say, though, I think that's actually another reason why this feels very different from a lot of other action movie heroine, both her as a action movie star, but also as how they're framing it, because, like, her arms are on prominent display. She is strong. And that also kind of changes the framing narrative that we usually put action heroines in.
Actually, that's a really good point. So, like, circling back around to Mitch's comparison to, like, ScarJo in the Avengers, Black Widow is always, like, boobs, hips, no muscles. Geena Davis in this, she's stringy. She's got these powerful arms. She's not very curvy, despite saying that she has a big ass. Let's not go into that. But she's portrayed as, like, athletic and strong.
And she also, like, gets beat the fuck up, and she looks like she got beat the fuck
she's,
up.
like, got a fat lip and bruising and a shiner and, like...
Yeah, and those do disappear faster than they probably should, but they do show her with bruises and cuts on her face, and, you know, when she's freezing to death, her lips are getting blue, and, like, also around her eyes.
Huge dark circles.
Yeah, and there's a huge reluctance to show that. I mean, Atomic Blonde was one of those movies that was kind of noteworthy because it shows her, also a spy, getting
dares to show a protagonist,
a female protagonist,
like, in a moment that's not pretty.
Yeah, that she's not pretty, but also, like, this woman has been clearly hurt. And we also do have a lot of reluctance showing that outside of very specific circumstances.
Even to this day, in the scene where, like, she and Mitch and the kid have scooted across the bridge to Canada in a flaming, shitty sedan, Sam and Mitch are both, like, their faces are covered in snot and blood, and they both look like absolute shit. And it's kind of great, because in most action movies, you would just shrug that off. And just have a little, like, sexy cut across your eye or some bullshit.
Yeah.
No, you would look like half-warmed ass after an experience like that. And they
do.
Yeah. And, okay, so here's another comparison to Die Hard. Because that's exactly what happens to Bruce Willis's character.
He gets sexy injured!
He gets sexy injured!
It's true!
And don't get me wrong, we like some sexy injured occasionally.
Fun. Yeah.
But
that's all you get most of the time.
Yeah, and particularly with female protagonists. Yes. That's all you get. And this did not do that. Yeah.
She's allowed to ugly bleed.
Well, and even ugly cry. When she does finally break down, it's not just like, she's like wailing.
A single picturesque tear. No.
Yeah.
We don't do that here.
Yeah. So, I just feel like they don't do the same kinds of framing shots.
There's not a lot of idealization here.
Yeah. Also, anybody with fucking eyes would be like, damn, Geena Davis is pretty. So you don't actually have to do a lot of work there.
I would die for her smile and her arms.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I was just sitting here thinking about it.
No, I think that's a critical point.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, how the eye of the narrative treats women in this movie. Even though there's really only one prominent woman, it does a lot of work to treat her differently than most narratives do. And I really appreciate that. It allows her to be a fully fledged person. I want to internalize that.
So I just wanted to make a little bit more comparison to Die Hard because that was more...
That's your point of reference.
So that was a little bit more of my point of reference. One thing I want to say about Long Kiss Goodnight is I don't feel like the villains were very, very substantial.
Yeah.
They were pretty
Yeah.
You had 3-4 separate villains, all with different weird, muddy motives.
Like, they were all interlocked, but there wasn't a lot of clarity.
No, like, you had this person who's kind of sort of related and
Well,
like-
I think kind of like in Birds of Prey, they weren't really the point, but...
I understand that, but I feel like the relationship between Bruce Willis's character and Alan Rickman's character as a counterpoint was really, really well done.
Yeah,
in
I feel
that
like
film.
the chemistry of that interaction might be part of why Die Hard has a little bit more
Staying power.
lasting power in the public consciousness,
Yeah.
because it is electric.
Well,
Yes.
but I would also say these are two different kinds of stories.
It is. They
Yeah.
are.
The-
but I feel like the clear hero, clear villain dynamic tends to
It's
respond
easier to latch
it.
onto, I think. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, but I think these are two very different stories
Yes.
because
Yes.
like Bruce Willis, what's the thing? Like it's his wife or his ex-wife or something is in that
They're on
building.
the outs. And
They're on the
trying to
outs.
get
He's
on the
trying
name.
to, you know, I don't know, like win her back or something, or he gets involved in this, and then it's like a battle of wills between him and Hans Gruber or whatever,
Yeah.
and his wife's life is in the balance. But this one
Has
is
different
about it's
priorities.
about
Yeah.
identity, and it's about family,
Yes.
and
Like, again, I would say that neither of these stories do anything wrong.
yeah.
But I think that's probably the reason why Die Hard has more broad
Yes.
appeal,
Yeah.
because it has that very compelling, easily reducible, like, there are these two monumental personalities clashing.
Oh,
Yes.
and I would also
And they're both
say,
men.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like people are a lot more comfortable with a
Male action hero.
and particularly in The Long Kiss Goodnight, because it didn't do the sort of typical sexy woman beats and pandering to exclusively the male gaze. I think it kind of lost staying power that way
Yes.
because I bet they didn't really know how to market it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can 100% guarantee you that probably in the 90s they were like, I mean, women don't, like, they only go see action movies when their, like, boyfriends drag them to it. So we need to market to the men, but somehow during the actual production itself, they were like, we're not going to do it to pander exclusively to the male gaze, which is good. I like that. But I think something got like kind of messed up in either, and probably in identifying who the audience was, which is stupid because there's plenty in The Long Kiss Goodnight for men and women to both be like, yeah, about. But tell that to marketing teams who don't necessarily want to like
1996 Hollywood.
Yeah, in 1996.
Whatever.
So I would say the other, reason for Die Hard's success, where The Long Kiss Goodnight is largely forgotten, is because it does tell a much more familiar story, a much easier one to market, and yeah, it's pretty streamlined because it's like basically these two men and then this woman kind of caught in the middle of that situation.
Then the Christmas season gets to officially begin when Alan Rickman drops off the top of Nakatomi Plaza.
Yep.
Yeah, so we should probably begin transitioning. There's the hammometer, and then kind of what we're doing, and then we'll call it good.
Yeah.
We'll bring this to the end.
So, that, listeners, brings us to the hammometer. If you're not familiar with this very important, exceptionally pivotal scale that we have here at Media Morsels, a 1 to a 10. 1 being anything compared to, like, Schindler's List, something very, very...
Something that's not very,
not hammy at all.
Very
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah. To a 10, which is Army of Darkness. If you're wondering why it is, go check that episode out.
It's a good episode.
It's
a
not
good
bad.
episode.
It's not bad. Anyway, I'm going to rate this one as a 7.
Break it down for us.
So, mostly this has to do with Samuel L. Jackson being Samuel L. Jackson. He gets 5 points by himself.
I mean, yeah, he's the narrative punching bag, so he gets to be hammy.
A lot of the mental going in and seeing Sam's internal struggles with her duality, that's kind of a little bit hammy here and there.
It's true.
well, just the action physics.
Action physics, also the fact that everybody just breaks into the train station, guns blazing all over the place, and also there's a point specific for whenever she surfs on the semi-truck and kills a couple of moves.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple of points for the ice rink adventure.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
7. Actually, no, 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's us to 8. At least.
That's 8.
There's a couple more meters, like the cheese-o-meter and the, I don't know, like
The
the
sauce-o-meter?
sauce-o-meter.
Sauce-o-meter.
I think cheese-wise, this is probably like a 5. It's not the cheesiest thing I've seen. I don't know, like there's a lot of overlap between ham and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I mean, again, with the cheesy action effects, right?
Mhm.
Just the physics of it.
Well,
That's,
and-
I think, where you get the cheese.
And I feel like you also get the cheese from, like, you have a nightmare about your evil self looking at you through a Victorian ornamental mirror and slitting your throat with a sexy knife.
I said a sexy knife, I did not think that, but
Yeah.
Are the one-liners counted as ham or cheese?
You can make a...
you can make a strong argument for
either one,
both.
yeah.
But I think that it's more hammy than it is cheesy.
Mm.
But I do think that
Yeah.
there's an appreciable amount of cheese, so that's why I would give it like a 5.
The sauce-o-meter.
Mm.
I feel like all the sauce in this movie comes from Geena Davis.
Yeah,
It's
really, for,
there's
for
no, like,
real.
There's no explicit sex.
There is no explicit sex, but she herself is just saucy and sexy and sassy. And I have a lisp, so I don't know why I said that. But I give it, I don't know, I think it's 6.
Yeah, and all the sauce is Geena Davis.
And
All
it's-
Geena Davis.
It's 3 points for each of Geena Davis's biceps.
There's 3 points for Sam and 3 points for Charlie, for each side of her personality. All right, and then I think we're going to begin wrapping up. We're going to begin kind of getting our plates together. But while we're doing that, we should talk about
Why
the Goblin
we've been
booth.
gone so long?
Well, we're not going to fully go into that, but as sort of like the designated businessy guy here, we have formed a group called Goblin Booth Productions. It folds under its umbrella this, Media Morsels, the upcoming project This Book Sucks, which will be hosted by Cian. Our sister program, The Harrowing of Minerva Damson, the 3rd season will be dropping in the first quarter of next year.
Yes, sorry about the delay. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of behind the scenes things going on.
Yeah.
We also have another program coming up in the first quarter of next year called Route 6.6. Follow us on Instagram. I'll be linking it in the show notes here. If you like the idea of a workplace comedy set in an alien truck stop, it might appeal to you. But there's also a book that is going to be coming out that is related to the harrowing universe.
Yes. In fact, the book came before the podcast.
And we'll get into that in a
And
separate
we will talk
announcement.
about that
But
more.
a lot of the delays in our programming have been associated with a lot of the action happening around that.
Yes.
But here at the Goblin Booth, we are looking forward to a full slate of programming coming up in 2024.
We've got a plan.
We've got a plan, we've got a release schedule. So for Media Morsels, we're planning on taking a break in January, but coming back strong in February with a full slate of romantic films. And then in March, in recognition of the upcoming primary season, there's going to be some politically oriented works of art that
Most of which are like kind of classic from like the
Mhm.
mid-century.
And yet, we still
And
haven't learned
still
any of the lessons from them yet.
Very, applicable.
But upcoming in January, we'll be starting to release episodes of This Book Sucks.
Yes.
I think that'll be happening on a twice monthly basis, so check our channels for that. It's going to be very exciting and a little bit horny.
We have something for everyone.
Yes.
If you're into horror, we've got you. If you want to laugh, we've got you. If you like sex, we've got you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we'll be linking
Question mark.
we'll be linking all of our various Instagram channels and other feeds in the show notes to this episode.
And I feel like we'll have more success with that this time because it is not me, the notoriously, like, social anxiety gremlin,
We have other people managing the social media
dealing with
now.
social media anymore. I have foisted that off onto everybody else who are all so much more adept with the social media stuff. Like, I do the writing and some narrating and some hosting and stuff, and I'm cool with that. I'm just like about social media.
We're all neurodivergent here in the Goblin Booth.
Yes.
But between the 5 of us, we can cobble together one functional human being.
Yes, that's why we formed the booth. We're all creative but dysfunctional people, but if by our powers combined.
We can make up for each other's deficits.
And
Yeah.
maybe by the end of this year, maybe Mythomatic can also produce a board game.
Yeah, so actually that's something that's really exciting. Mythomatic, me and Mitch's design company?
Yeah,
Association?
Game Design Association Company. We're also kind of throwing that into Goblin Booth Productions.
Yeah, it is under that same umbrella.
I mean, we are a media production company, so
that's going to involve...
there's lots of media.
In the next... Just in the next year alone, we're going to be doing podcast programming, tabletop board games, and at least one book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
2024
got
is
a
looking
plan.
to be a very full year. We really look forward to all of you who are listening coming along on that journey with us. And if you have any questions, drop us a line on any one of our multiple social media channels.
which will all probably be getting updates in the next few weeks.
Yes.
And, sort of relaunching bigger and better than before.
Yeah, we're taking this moment after our unintentional hiatus to regroup and come back better.
Yeah, so exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Exciting
so
stuff
your
here.
Slop.
Yeah, only the finest china for this swill. Remember that, folks. So, and, who knows? Like, merch might actually freaking happen. We're so close. That's part of the plan for this year.
We have so many ideas.
We have so many ideas, but I feel like we're getting organized to at least do hopefully 75% of them, barring like the life things, which definitely happen, but fingers crossed.
So look to our Instagram for Goblin Booth Productions for an upcoming programming schedule for 2024. We're currently finalizing that, but we should be posting it sometime within the next couple of weeks.
And what is that handle? Is it just at Goblin Booth?
It's at Goblin Booth Productions.
All right, at Goblin Booth Productions on Instagram.
But that link will also be in the description.
Yes. All right, I think it's time to put these dishes in the sink, wind down for the night. You guys want to kick your feet up, have a drink, talk amongst yourselves about the movie that we just discussed. Go ahead and do that. And thank you for being here. We really loved having you. We'll be back with another entry to our Media Morsels Christmas special, and we will save you a seat.
Good night, motherfucker.
Yeah.